we're looking at longevity. When we hire somebody, we want to hire people to be police officers that want to stay.
So if I see you with that stare, like, maybe, then I'm gonna engage you. I'm gonna like, hey, come over. Interested in wanting to be a police officer?
Welcome to this edition of City Law, City Justice. I'm Officer Rachelle Denmark with the Tallahassee Police Department. I'm the guest host today, filling in for Officer David Northway. Today we're going to be talking about recruitment. There's many people in our community and even outside of our community that are interested in being police officers with Tallahassee Police Department. There's a lot of steps and different things that people have to go through in order to become a police officer. Today, we're hoping to answer some of the questions to those of you that are interested in being a police officer. We've got Investigator Phil Hines from the Tallahassee Police Department and Dion Grimes, who is our Director of Employee Resources, here with us today, and we're going to be talking about some of the things that you might need to do in order to become a police officer and some of the things that are specific to Tallahassee. Hi, how are y'all doing today?
Good, how are you?
Good to have you here. Phil Hines,
Yes.
you're a background investigator with the Tallahassee Police Department.
Yes.
Okay. I'm a person that's interested in becoming a police officer. What exactly, where would I start? What would I do?
Well, the first thing that you would need to do prior to applying is to look into becoming certified as a police officer in the state of Florida. In order to do that, you have to attend an academy here in Florida. And there's several different locations where you can do that throughout the Panhandle, throughout the entire state of Florida. Once you become certified through a police academy, you can then apply with the police department, and you can do that online. All of our applications and forms are available online at talgov.com. If you go to talgov.com, there's a section that's actually titled Becoming an Officer, Becoming a Police Officer. And from there, go in and you can fill out all of the application forms that are there.
Okay, so first, what I would need to do is independently attend an academy to become a certified officer in the state of Florida.
That's correct.
Okay, so I've already done that. I've been to the academy, which is a whole different process, is my understanding.
Yes.
Then I would go online to talgov.com and fill out an application, which is a general application for the city of Tallahassee.
There are actually two. You fill out a general employees application as well as a TPD application, which is a lot more in-depth. It asks a lot more questions about your background as far as your criminal history, if there is any, driving history. Goes into a lot of references, a lot of your employment history that people that we want to go back and talk to and kind of get an idea of the different things that you've done.
Okay, so you know it's a whole lot more in depth than a normal employment application.
Correct.
And why would that be? Why would the Tallahassee Police Department have such an extensive questionnaire?
Just because we want to have the best idea of who we're looking at to hire, and we're going to get a lot better picture of our applicants by getting all of that information. The more information we get, obviously the better picture that we have as far as whoever's applying.
As a background investigator, would you be looking into, like, say I'm applying and I'm filling out the application, you would be looking into very specifics about my employment background, where I've worked before, possibly talking to people there, looking at my driving history and my criminal record, if there's any at all. Preferably not, is my understanding.
Yes, and we'll get an idea from your employers what your performance was like, the reasons why you left those different jobs, because all of those things are factors that we need to take into consideration, because we're looking at longevity. When we hire somebody, we want to hire people to be police officers that want to stay with us.
Okay. And that is, like, I understand that completely, because it's a very serious job. Dion, you're the Director of Employee Resources.
Yes.
What does that mean to somebody that's watching this show? What do you do as the director, and what is Employee Resources for the police department itself?
The Employee Resources Office is actually broke down into several different sections. One of those sections is the recruiting section. Then we have the background investigator. We also deal with other aspects of the department, with workers' compensation, benefits, time and attendance. So it encompasses pretty much everything that an employee needs to do to be hired. And once they get hired, we help them with, beneficiaries and, whatever personnel issues that they have.
I say the police department's very fortunate to have its own employee resources division within the
Yes.
department. I think that's probably a very helpful thing for the officers.
We're one of the few departments within the city of Tallahassee that has their own area like that. I believe us and the fire department are the only two that have their own employee resources office.
Okay, so I filled out the application and Phil's doing the background investigation on me. Where does employee resources step in? Is there any particular point in the recruitment process that employee resources steps in and starts, corresponding with the applicant or perhaps providing direction?
Well, that's part of the whole process. We work hand in hand because the background investigator is part of my office. So we work hand in hand the whole time. The background investigator pretty much does it from the beginning once we get the application through the getting ready to do the report that actually goes up the chain up to the chief of police for the final review. At that point, there's a form that's filled out. It's a report, a background report that I review to make sure there's not any issues that we're finding, and then I send it up the chain ultimately to the chief.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense, and it's a very good thing that Tallahassee has an extensive process because we want nothing but the best officers working here. As employee resources, you said that you are corresponding with the applicants and looking into their backgrounds and getting a report to the chief. What exactly would the chief of police see?
The steps are from the beginning. When they fill out the application, that's the first phase, and then we do a criminal background check, which is where that's like one of the preliminary steps. We run their background through all the different checks that we have through the Florida criminal database, the national database, local database checks. Once they pass that, then they start the process where they have an oral board, and the officer sits in front of an oral board, which is made up of 3 to 4 individuals from the department. If they pass the oral board, then they get what's called a conditional job offer. The conditional offer then allows us to do additional testing, such as CVSA, which is a voice recognition.
It's like a voice stress analysis.
Yeah, it's a voice stress analysis. They'll do that. They'll do a psychological exam through our psychologist, a medical, physical, drug test. Once they've passed all of those areas, then we get into the actual background investigation. That's where we call your former employers. We do reference checks with your neighbors. We talk to personal references, and that's where we really get into what kind of employee is this person going to make. Once that's complete, an entire report is done that will then come to me. I review it, and if everything's in that report, I find the person would be a good candidate, then it goes to my captain, who then forwards it up to the major, the deputy chief, and then the chief. Chief has the final say. He does an interview, and after his interview, then he determines whether he's going to extend a job offer to this person or not.
That sounds like a very extensive process, and I'm very interested to get into some more details with this. I know there's a lot of questions. This has probably prompted more questions from our viewers that are interested in being a police officer. We're going to get into some more questions in just a few minutes, and we're going to talk about some of the specifics that they'll have to do and how long. So I appreciate you being here today. We've got more questions. We'll be right back on City Law, City Justice with more on recruiting.
Until all our daughters are safe. Until all our children have families. Until all our families have homes. Until all our parents are cared for. We'll be here.
Welcome back to City Law, City Justice. Today we've been talking about recruitment at the Tallahassee Police Department. We've learned a lot of things so far, and there's a lot of steps that applicants have to take to get hired with Tallahassee. We're going to get a little more in depth with that, talking to investigator Phil Hines and the ER director Dion Grimes today. So thank y'all for being here again, and we're going to talk about, some more in depth of our process that we have to go through. So I've gotten the conditional offer, as we talked about.
Yes.
I've gone through the oral board. You've given me a conditional offer of employment. What happens now? Where do we go, and what does that mean?
Well, just to go back to the oral board for just a second, the one piece of advice I would give an applicant before the oral board, and it's a question that I get from a lot of people that apply. As far as the oral board, what can I expect from the oral board? The oral board is always going to consist of command staff, as well as some people that we've taken from the ranks at the police department.
And when you say command staff, what does that exactly mean to somebody watching?
That's going to be people from the rank of captain on up. So we're usually going to have at least one captain in the room, some lieutenants, possibly an officer, an investigator, and that's going to be a panel interview. But a lot of people are wondering how to prepare for that. And I tell people just treat it like you would any job interview. Dress like you would for a job interview. They're going to ask questions that are basically they just want to get to know you and kind of get to know what your thought process would be. Maybe some scenario questions, maybe just questions about you. The questions are always going to be changing, but it's really just a chance for that panel to get to know who you are.
Okay, so in the panel, I'm just, talking like I would in a normal interview.
Correct.
And they're getting a pretty good idea of who I am. There are, you said, some scenario-based questions which would probably give them an idea of how I would respond in a certain situation.
Yeah, it's not going to be anything that's over your head as far as if you have no experience doing the job of a police officer, where they're not going to give you a scenario where you would have no idea how to answer it. It's going to be something that's probably going to deal with the training that you've already received at the academy.
Okay, so we've gone through the oral board, and I've done a great job.
Mm-hmm.
They're the command staff is like, yeah, we like this person, and
Okay.
Where do we go now? What's a conditional? What does that mean if I'm given a conditional offer of employment? What exactly does that mean?
The conditional offer that you'll sign, it lists all the different steps that you will take in the hiring process from there on, and that conditional means that it's your offer for employment is conditional upon you completing or successfully completing the next steps of the hiring process. So from there, we'll schedule you to participate in a medical physical, which is just a regular physical, and we'll also schedule you for a psychological evaluation with a local psychologist, and then we'll also schedule you for a CVSA, which is a computer voice stress analysis, and that's the equivalent of a polygraph examination.
Okay, so the conditional offer is that I get through all these other procedures and steps that I have to go through, and now that that's done, and to backtrack a minute, how long does that take, just as an estimate, to get through all of this? From
the oral board, scheduling the oral board, to you actually having your interview with the chief, we're looking at probably about a 2-month time frame.
And the interview with the chief would come after the other steps?
After you've successfully completed the testing that I mentioned, meaning the CVSA, the psychological, and the medical examination, and then the background that we talked about earlier, where I would check your references and your past employers. Then from there, I would write a report detailing all of those tests that you've participated in and all of those reference checks that we've done, as well as all your criminal background that we've done. That'll all be sent up through the chain, like we mentioned before, from me and the director to the captain to the majors to the deputy chief and then to the chief. The chief will get a chance to review your entire file and review that report, and then you'll be scheduled an interview with him, just a one-on-one interview with the chief.
Okay, and what would that be like for someone who is coming into the department and has already gone through all these steps? Is that kind of nerve-wracking for new applicants, or is that, just give me an idea of what that's like?
For some people it is, but again, he wants to talk to talk to you because he's essentially the one that's hiring you, and he knows that you're going to be representing the city of Tallahassee. So he wants to at least get a small section of time with each person that he's hiring, just to kind of get a good feel for you one-on-one.
Okay.
Outside of just looking at the report and seeing on paper what we've discovered about your background and who
That
you
does
are.
make sense too. It's one thing looking at something on paper. It's another thing when you actually have a face-to-face with somebody and you can get just a good feel for that. And I think that's important to the citizens of Tallahassee. So we're very, very glad that the chief does that and the process itself.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I've had my interview with the chief and he said, I like this person. What now? Can you kind of walk us through what happens next?
Well, I'm only involved for a very short time. After that, I'll actually call the people and offer them the job. They'll come in and they'll get their letter from the chief, signed from the chief, basically the official job offer. And from there, then we'll give them their start date. The first day that they show up for work as a police officer.
Okay, I'm here for the first day.
Okay.
Do I come in to see you, or how does that work?
Usually about a week before the start date, we'll have each person that we're hiring come in, do all their new hire paperwork, which is, their I-9s, their W-2s, paperwork such as that. Then on their first day, usually their first or second day, Employee Resources takes them for about 4 hours during the day and just kind of goes over the basic stuff for the department, stuff they need to know. HR will come in from City Hall and go over their benefits. Retirement comes in and goes over all their retirement benefits. And then the rest of the time for the next few weeks, they're doing a lot of in-house training.
Okay, so I go in and I fill out a bunch of paperwork just like any normal day at any job that you would go to. Those things are necessary, but I don't go to the street yet.
No.
So anybody who would think I'm coming in and I'm going right into a police car, wait, there's other things that have to be done.
Correct.
Okay, so we've got, you called it an in-house training. Tallahassee Police has I guess a training program they want to put their officers through to acclimate them to the city and what the city's expectations are.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, so can you expound on that just a little bit? Tell me a little bit about what that in-house is like.
Our in-house program is several weeks long, and it's because we want to train you as a new officer or as an officer coming from another agency. We want to train you to TPDs and the City of Tallahassee's policies and procedures, our legal guidelines that we go by. We'll train you to use our vehicles. We'll train you in defensive tactics and the.
So basically we're looking at everything that we would do on the street. We're just getting a really good training session first before we go out, more so
Correct.
than we had in the academy.
Absolutely.
Okay, well I appreciate all the information and I'm sure everybody else does. Dion, thank you so much for being here. You are the director of our employee resources, such a great thing that we have with the police department with Tallahassee, and I appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
We'll be right back on City Law, City Justice with more recruiting.
That's been just 10 seconds. If you commit a crime and pull a gun, this will be your home for 10 years. Fire the gun, 20 years. Shoot someone, 25 years to life. 10-20 life is the law. Get the picture?
It's a career of courage.
It's a career of strength.
It's a career of honor.
It's a career of integrity.
It's a career of pride.
It's a career of commitment.
Character.
Honor.
Courage.
The Florida Department of Corrections. It's a career of courage.
Welcome back to City Law, City Justice. I am Officer Rachelle Denmark with the Tallahassee Police Department. We've been talking about recruitment and the steps that an applicant will have to go through in order to become a Tallahassee police officer. We've also started to touch on what kind of applicant that we're looking for with the Tallahassee Police Department, and I'd like to introduce you today, Sergeant Anitra Highland.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Sergeant Highland is our community relations sergeant, and she is also very involved with the recruitment at Tallahassee Police Department. So, Sergeant Highland, I am at a career fair and I talk to you. You're there. What do you say to me to get me interested in Tallahassee Police?
Well, what do I say? Well, first of all, I need you to come towards my table when I'm there set up at a career fair, because if you just walk past me, you're really not interested. So if I see you with that stare, like, maybe, then I'm going to engage you. And I'm going to like, hey, come over. Interested in wanting to be a police officer? And then if you give me that, well, I was thinking about it, because that's what we get most times. You get that, well, I'm thinking about it. And I'm like, okay, well, tell me what you're thinking about. Right? And so I'm going to engage you in conversation, and I want to know a little bit more about you. I'm going to ask you if you're a student, what experience you have. I mean, not just experience as far as job, but your life experience, because that has something to do with becoming a great police officer, your life experience as well. So what we'll do is we'll chat a little bit. If you are not really sure, you're not going in the right direction, it gives me an opportunity to educate you on the things that you need to do to go in the right direction if this is the true career that you want to be in.
And I'm sure that in community relations, you encounter a lot of people in the community and even outside the community that are probably interested in becoming a police officer.
Oh yes, definitely we do. We in community relations, we actually set up static displays in a lot of different places, whether it be state or just out state facilities or out in the community. But we have people that come up to us then and want to know, hey, I have a question that I always wanted to ask, and then they engage us in conversation and we talk about becoming a police officer there. We actually interact with thousands of people on a monthly basis. So it gives us an outlet to, meet, greet, and talk about becoming a police officer.
All right, that's wonderful. And I'm going to ask you, and I'm engaged now, you've got me interested, okay. So I'm going to ask you, what kind of officer are you looking for at Tallahassee, and what kind of things does Tallahassee, what can they offer me? Meaning salary and such.
Okay, well, first, when you ask me what type of officer are we looking for, I'm kind of comical, a little humorous when I'm speaking to you, and I'm going to tell you, look at myself. I want someone, that's going to be an image of myself. As first off, but then I'm gonna laugh and we're gonna talk about the fact that, I'm the future of the Tallahassee Police Department. And since I'm the future of the Tallahassee Police Department, I want somebody that's gonna come along and help me in continuing that future, continuing that legacy. So with that, I'm gonna introduce to you, that we have like a little flyer, which I have here. Okay. And on this flyer, it has all of the qualifications, and we're gonna discuss, first thing people wanna know, well, how much does it pay? And I'm going to tell you, it pays about $43,437 and some pocket change, right? A little bit change. And so you're going to be like, oh, okay, that sounds good. And you're going to have that interested look. And then I'm going to ask, though, have you gone to the police academy? And you're going to have that look like, I got to go to the police academy? And I'm going to go, yeah, you have to go to the police academy. So you're going to be interested in that. And so I'm going to tell you a couple of police academies that are in the area. So if say we're at a career fair at one of the universities, we'll use that as an example, and you're here in Tallahassee, you're going to want to stay in Tallahassee, so I'm probably going to say go to the Pat Thomas Law Enforcement Academy, the Florida Public Safety Institute, and then you're going to ask me how long is that going to take, and I'm probably going to tell you it depends on if you want to go during the daytime or you want to go in the afternoon. Do you have to work? Because if you have to work, you're probably going to want to go in the evening time, right? And that's going to be, I think, 6 to 10. I'm almost positive. Then it's going to take you about 9 months to complete that. So that's 9 months of your life. Now it's starting to get serious, right?
Okay, so in order to even consider being a Tallahassee police officer, I have to go through almost a year of training outside, only at night.
That's if you want to go, if you have to work a job, because everybody cannot just stop what they're doing and go to the police academy during the day. If you go during the day, it's 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, and it's like 5.5 months of your life. So,
well, the salary sounds pretty good though for somebody, and I know, Phil, I know you talked about the salary, or started to touch on, the salary. What are we looking at exactly? You said 43?
Yes.
Yes.
What if I have experience coming in here? What if what if I've got other law enforcement or military experience? Does that count at all?
Yes. Actually, we've modified our qualifications recently to allow us to let military and people with law enforcement experience apply with our agency. In the past, as far back as I could research, we had always required a 2-year degree for everybody. In order to apply with the Tallahassee Police Department, you had to have a 2-year degree. And we modified that qualification to allow people with 2 years of experience in the military or with another law enforcement agency to apply with us, even if they didn't have that 2 years of college.
Does the military experience have to be as like a security police or military police, or does it's just general military?
No, the only stipulation is that it is full-time military experience. It can be in any branch of the military.
Okay. And so, did you want to add something?
I do. I want to say, yes, you can have the military experience, but you still would have to go to the academy. So that is something that needs to be understood. Even if you come from another agency, say if you come from an agency outside of the state of Florida, you still would have to go through a condensed Florida academy to make sure that you're Florida certified. So yes, you can have experience, but if you have Florida certification, yes, that's like a lateral transfer, and you'll be able to just come to the Tallahassee Police Department. But it's Florida, that's Florida certification. If you come from Georgia, or if you come from Alabama or one of those states like that, you will have to go to a Florida condensed version of the police academy. And he talked about the military experience. Yes, you can have military experience, but you will still have to go to the police academy in Florida.
And that's not a condensed version. That's
No,
that's the entire
thing.
academy.
Right,
So
you have to-
prior experience as a law enforcement would be in an equivalency of training type of thing with the academy. Okay, so I've got the military, or say I've got the law enforcement experience, and say I've got so many years. Say I've got 5-10 years as a law enforcement officer outside the state of Florida. What would I be looking at as in a salary?
We do have a lateral transfer program to where you would be making more than an officer who's had no experience whatsoever. You would come in at a higher step, is what we call them. All of our pay goes by steps, 1 step for each year of service. And depending on how many years of service you had at another law enforcement agency, we would put that into basically a table that we have made up, and that would tell us what step that you would start out at.
That's great. That's very encouraging to people. We got a very short time, a few seconds left. Sergeant Highland, if you want to give me a real quick, why do you want to be TPD? Why would I want to be TPD?
Why wouldn't you want to be TPD? We are one of the best agencies in the United States. I mean, we have some of the best training. I mean, I would rather be nowhere else than the Tallahassee Police Department. But I just want to add one little thing, though. I know for anyone that's looking to go into law enforcement, I want them to understand that they need to research the agency that they're going to. So if you want to come and work for the Tallahassee Police Department, you need to research. Every agency has qualifications, and those qualifications need to be, before you even decide that, hey, I want to work for this agency, you need to make sure that you meet those minimum qualifications.
I appreciate both of y'all being here. Thank you, Phil Hines. Thank you, Sergeant Anitra Highland. You've been so informative, and we appreciate it. Thank you for watching City Law, City Justice, and we will see you next time.